everyone, welcome back. And in this video, I'll be giving you some information on how an API works. So, in the previous video, I've taken a video on what is an API. So, if you haven't got to see that video, you can click on the link given in the description box. Now, let's get to see how an API works. So, on a high level, an API is an intermediate interface between two or more applications. So in order for two applications to communicate with each other, an API is that intermediate layer that exists. So now how an API actually connects these two applications is what we are going to see over here. So now let's say we have two applications. One could be the application that is requesting for some data. So usually that application is called as a client, okay, or the client application. And the application from which data needs to be retrieved, it can be any other secondary application, it can be a web server. So in between these two applications is where an API exists. So now when an application wants to retrieve information, first the client raises a request. So now when a request gets raised, the API takes this request and then the API on behalf of this client makes a call to the web server or the other application to which the API wants to connect with. So after making a call, the application then sends back the data, which is nothing but an application response. So it sends the response back to an API, and then the API in turn will transfer or forward that information back to the client. For example, let's say that a client is requesting for, let's say an application is requesting for employee details, and the employee details is going to be in another HR portal. So the client application raises a request. So now raising a request saying that, hey, I need these details of the employees. So now when a request is raised, usually a request has a format, okay, but we're not going to get too much in detail. So an API request always starts with a verb. So if you see here, you would find every API request starting with a verb, such as post, delete, get. So these are all different API requests that start with a verb. And within the request, there can be different sections, such as a API request header, you have a request body, and so on. So keeping that in mind, so let's say that the client is requesting for employee details. So that would be like a get request because you want to get some information. So within that get request, the client application would send this request to the API. Now the API is going to make a request on behalf of the client application to the web server. Once the web server gets this request, it's going to send back an application response, and the application response also has a format. You have a response header, you have a body, which definitely there's a structure for the application response also. So once the API gets back this employee details, the API is then going to forward the employee details back to the client application. So all this is the back-end operation of what happens when a user initially requests for some data. Let's say we as a user, we are interacting with just the UI interface and we are just saying view employee details. But at the back end, this is what is happening. The different applications are communicating with each other and the API is playing an important role. The main use of this API is that it decouples all the applications and it decouples the infrastructure and also the functionalities. So all applications won't be tightly coupled. So whenever there is a need, API requests can be raised and information can be transferred. And now you might be wondering, when information is being transferred between one application to another, there would be high chances for hackers to hack into the system and get information. So there are different ways in which there different concepts were called, like such as API security, where separate security techniques and compliance and mechanisms are used in order to secure the APIs. Okay, so also here if you see the APIs, when applications interact with each other and transfer data, only the data that is required will be transferred and not more than that. Data is sent in small packets of limited information. So this is the overview of how an API works. So I hope that you got a functional and overview theoretical understanding of how an API works. So if you found this helpful, please do give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to this channel, and also do share your feedbacks. Thank you.